Hello and welcome to All in Motion. I am your host, Jake. This is episode 18, Veterans Homelessness. Homelessness is a growing issue in this country, and unfortunately most of us have turned a blind eye. Listen as my guest shares his powerful journey and how resiliency played a huge role with him starting his nonprofit organization, Hopeonesource. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Underwood. How are we doing, sir?
Good to be here, Jake. Thank you to have me.
Thank you, sir. Lovely to have you. Would you like to, for a few minutes, introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Happy to. So name Tim Underwood again, and background Air Force officer, OIF veteran, Eagle Scout, Honor Medal recipient. Did a little bit in the military. I've also worked in policy. The past decade, I've worked with homeless veterans programs at the Department of Veterans Affairs and a stint at the White House as well. And then most recently, during this pandemic, I've stepped away from my federal comfort job to focus on a nonprofit, which I now lead full time.
That's awesome. Cool fun fact about you, and I hope you don't mind me bringing it up. You attended Harvard. That's pretty cool, right? You share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did an executive education program through them. Post 9/11 GI Bill paid for it. Didn't have to pay a dime. And yeah, I would say the networking and just the curriculum was extraordinary. But would definitely not downplay any other universities, which I've been to many, and all are great.
Cool. So be it where are you from originally?
Originally from Virginia.
Virginia. What
Yeah.
part?
Central Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you want to choose a career in the military? What prompted that?
Yeah. So what made me want to join the military is I grew up in a military area. My dad was not military, but where he worked with his profession, I was surrounded by folks my best friend, kid down the street, everyone in my classroom. So, I just fell in love with the ability to travel and serve my country. And then 9/11 happened, which really made me think, is this something that I really want to do? And that was the tip of the spear for me. And that's really the tipping point where I decided to join the military was 9/11.
Wow. And then from there, Air Force, correct, like you said, right?
You bet. Mm-hmm.
And what did you start out doing in the Air Force when you first enlisted?
Yeah, so I went for undergrad to the University of Maryland for ROTC, and I commissioned, and I was a logistics officer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, and I know you and I spoke about it, still serve as a reservist, correct?
I am, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you almost 20 years?
A little less, about 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your plan, was your initial plan to make a career of the military?
I would say I've really gone at it one day at a time, but I was active. I was 4 years active, and I've, since 2011, been a reservist.
Okay.
So a little over a decade.
Okay. So when you were in the Air Force, did you know what you wanted to do when you initially first started working in the VA?
Not exactly. I knew I wanted to help veterans and help vulnerable people.
Right. And that's where I'm going to get into. It's really cool what we spoke about in that. And you were there, I believe, for 10 years, correct?
In the VA.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Now, I just wanted to, if it's all right, and I believe I'm not going to, get really into it. I can post it, actually. I will post it, actually, the study, if that's all right, that we're getting into. I know we spoke about it. But it's the original study was done, correct me if I'm wrong, with the VA. And I believe it was a study based on 30 cities in America. There were actors and actresses that over a period of time, I'm just giving the idea. And I believe it was 2017, Tim, is that correct? The study when it first started?
Yeah, 2016.
2016. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. So basically what the study is, and you can fill in the gaps for me, Tim, was basically, and this is why it means so much to me and a lot of veterans, and I really wanted to address, and also to the civilians out there that never served in the military, was the fact that, which really, really drew me, and I read the whole study. Luckily, I took statistics in college, so the blind stuff, and I kind of, a lot of people think it's boring, but I believe we can keep it at a level where I really want to showcase this because it's really cool, actually. So there was 30 cities, and a study that you and some others conducted where 30 cities, people from African American, Hispanic, Caucasian, I believe, were there some Asian as well? Or no Asian?
No Asian, no.
Okay, so just mainly African American, Caucasian, Hispanic, correct?
Yeah, it ranged. We had African American, Black, and we had white, Caucasian, and then we ranged the age.
Okay.
So.
Okay, cool. And the
and gender as well.
Gender as well, of course. The age range, I mean, is about, I'd say, like, from what I remember, the article, about 25, 35, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We had OEF, OIF, aged veteran female,
right.
And then we had a Persian Gulf male, and then third and lastly, we had a Vietnam veteran era.
Right. And the goal of the study, from what I understand, it was to find out how the Veterans Administration centers in these 30 cities were performing for veterans seeking out benefits, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it was veterans experiencing homelessness. You got it.
Mm-hmm. And then, what's really cool, and to give the audience some context, this is actually we'll put this on when we put the episode out there, Tim. We'll put this out there and we'll link it to it because it's amazing. It's on the Oxford Academica, and it's the impact of unannounced standardized veteran program of access to community-based services for veterans experiencing, and what the results were from the study after it was finished.
Sure. So in 2015, this was about year 4 for me that I had left active duty, was working as a Fed
right.
in Washington, D.C. at the VA headquarters, the Department of Veterans Affairs. And throughout this time, I had been working on national homeless veteran programs. And there was a real push to end veteran homelessness. In fact, the National Homeless Program Office budget that I worked in went from about $300 million a year to around $1.6 billion. So quite a substantial growth. And during that time, there was around a 50% drop in veteran homelessness. And, this really meant a lot to me because I had served active and was still serving, which I am now, and had come across family, friends who I've served with who have experienced homelessness or who have experienced vulnerability. And to that effect, when 2015 came around, this was a landmark year because there was this really audacious goal that had been set by the Obama administration to end veteran homelessness. And that's really was the reason, the rationale for that increase in funding. And had the opportunity to work with a lot of smart policymakers and integrate all of these programs across the country based on evidence. And here we were on 2015, and veteran homelessness had not been ended. So I really wanted to experience it. So very long story short, to answer your question of why this study began, it began because my wife and I, we did this homeless challenge. Where we were not authorized by the government to do this. We received no permission, nor did we ask. But we, through this group in D.C., we took to the streets and we panhandled and we tried to access VA services. And right then and there, I learned that what's on policy and paper is not often an implementation. And it was just a horrible experience. So I brought that back. Actually, a Washington Post reporter wanted to interview me, and just to say, said no to that, but said yes to trying to change the VA from within. And that's really how that national homeless mystery shopping effort commenced in 2015, 16-ish. just as the current location. So twofold to give a very high level version of the study. So what happened was we sent trained actors and actresses, as he mentioned, to 30 communities nationally. So from Miami to San Diego, we sent them all over. And these were where veterans were accessing VA taxpayer-funded services. And throughout those experiences, we saw this was a 3-year study, we saw in the first 2 years that the Black actor and the more senior actor were significantly disproportionately less likely to access. And no one was racist to them and said, "Oh, you're too old," or "We don't accept your kind here." It was none of that. But it was just bureaucracy racism. It was just creating more hoops, more forms needing to come back and do this. And effectively, we made some tweaks and changes. And in year 3, this was a good news story, but the Black actor, as well as the senior, the more older gentleman who was portraying a veteran, saw no variation in terms of barriers to access. So this was a good news story. I will say, unfortunately, that has stopped. The VA stopped that. And that was right at the time that I resigned during the pandemic to come in. So to answer your second question about where it stands, I mean, just homelessness in general across the country right now, I don't think anyone can deny it's going through the roof. Affordable housing is just not there. It's not available. And we're seeing increasing numbers of that. And that's really why I'm running this nonprofit out of government at this time.
To help prevent or make it help, homelessness, people that are on the street potentially seek other resources.
Sure. And that's a great question. And I think policymakers and churchgoers, just everyone, do-gooders have been asking that question and wanting to, make a difference. And really homeless, is just what it means, right? It's without a home. So the key, the solution to getting someone out of homelessness is to get them housed. Now, there's a lot of theories and there's a lot of evidence that support different viewpoints. And I think many of them have a lot of good virtues and a lot that can be learned from it. But at the end of the day, it's about helping someone stabilize their housing. And, I'm happy to go in what that doesn't look like, what that can look like. But, to end homelessness, we've got to get people into housing.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. We know why. It'd be very difficult to try to ask you, how do we end homelessness? That'd be that is not realistic. But if you want to, like you said, if you want to go in a little bit on your thoughts about that, please.
Sure. Well, evidence shows that, everyone is one broken relationship away from experiencing homelessness. So, I think of my personal story. I'm very privileged to be born in, white middle-class family where when my scholarship didn't go through at first, my dad was able to support. Not everyone has that. And in fact, 1/3, so every 3 people you encounter on the street or you encounter in a shelter or just someone not having stable housing, they come from the foster system. So they did not have a relationship. So there's a lot of systems at play. But really to simplify this at its core, it's meeting people where they're at and connecting them to what they need when they need it. And that could be a job so that they have stable income. That could be mental health so that they can have a stable job, which will pay the rent for their home. It can be a whole slew, but it really comes down to meeting people where they're at and trying to connect them with what they need, with obviously, of course, a focus on housing being the priority.
For you, how have you been able to apply resiliency through your own life if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, my view is that it takes oftentimes a lot of failure before success, and I've seen a lot of it. And I think you first have to define success and failure. But to me, success is defined as doing what you want to do and helping others at the same time, and hopefully being able to make a living at the same time. I've found myself running this nonprofit. I've been very fortunate. Have been in many great jobs where they've paid well, and I've run into issues trying to make things happen in government. I learned quickly in government that it's a ship and it does not turn quickly. So I would say with the resilience while I was in government, where I saw failure, it would be being told no. And how I overcame that was finding change agents, finding people that thought similarly, that make things happen. But overall, I've just seen a lot of failure in my life. And, what's key to me is learning from that and continuing to grow.
Report found that 360,000 people experienced sheltered homelessness in the United States on a single night in 2021. I don't know if that's just something I just pulled up here just shortly, but just wanted to touch on that.
What was the source from that?
The source is it's HUD.gov.
Yeah, that should be accurate.
Yeah, I pulled it from HUD. Yeah, that's HUD stat. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted, not that they have that up. It's that number from what you remember. I don't, like I'm saying, just want to touch briefly on this. Is that when you higher or lower when you did that study, or when you were doing that in the office in the VA at that time? Seem high or low to you?
The number seems very low.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to give a little context, this is HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development. They partnered with the federal agency that I worked at, and I just know a lot of good folks there. And they do this. They fund congressionally mandated this annual point in time count, and this count occurs at the end of January every year, where these local geographical funded communities, about a little over 400 of them, receive federal funding to do this. And they take to the streets, they go into shelters, but of course it's not a catch-all. And there have been a lot of exceptions and waivers because of the pandemic. So this number, although I said accurate, it is the best that we have, but I would say it is highly undervalued in terms of the number that are out there.
And I just want to touch on, if that's okay, just share some facts real quick.
Sure.
That's cool.
Sure.
This is from the HUD, from your point. It's on a single night in 2021, more than 326,000 people were experiencing sheltered homelessness in the United States. 6 in 10 were individuals, that is people in households with only adults or in households with only children. 4 in 10 were people in families with children. Second fact, number of people staying in shelter locations decreased by 8% between 2020 and 2021. While this continues a decline that began in 2015, the drop between 2020 and 2021 was steeper than those in recent years. Just want to share a couple of these. And then the share of emergency shelter beds for people experiencing sheltered homelessness located in settings increased by 134%. And then the number of sheltered individuals with chronic patterns of homelessness increased by 20% between 20 and 21. And this last one I shared, there's other ones, but I just want to wrap it up. On a single night in 2021, 15,763 people under the age of 25 experienced sheltered homelessness on their own as unoccupied with youth. This represented a decline of 9% between 2020 and 2021, while decreases in sheltered homelessness among unoccupied youth were experienced across nearly all demographic characteristics. A few groups did experience increases. So I just wanted to, and this is HUD.gov. If anyone I'll put that out there too, if people would like to check those statistics. So, do you have anything after we move on from this?
Sure. No, I think this provides a good baseline, foundational point for discussion. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Appreciate that. So I want to move on to definitely to your the nonprofit, which is Hopeonesource, and which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you cited some great facts there that relating to homelessness nationally, and then you transitioned it well to the nonprofit. And I want to say, our nonprofit, we don't just focus on homelessness. We focus on refugees. And for example, with Ukraine right now, there's been about 3 million, a little over that, from my understanding, that have fled the country. But yeah, what our nonprofit, we're focused to do in one sentence is to help connect vulnerable people to services.
Right. And, I'll just read really quickly, if you don't mind me, I'll read the mission, if that's cool.
That's great.
The mission is Hopeonesource is a social impact program powered by Hope with Love, a 501c3 nonprofit that leverages outreach technology for good. We aim to connect our most vulnerable neighbors to nearby and verified services they need with dignity, security, and ease. That's awesome. So that's awesome. And, I'll let you go into it. But first, I just want to say I think I know it's awesome what you, your wife, and all the volunteers do because, like you and I spoke about, it's a nonprofit. Maybe like what it is you do, and then potentially talk about goals and then where you see yourself maybe in the next 5 to 10 years with the nonprofit.
Yeah, sure. So what I do is I lead this organization, and we currently have several hundred volunteers. We have about a core team of a little less than a dozen who really are dependable, pulling the strings behind the scenes, making this all come together. But what is together and what is it, right? So, what we do is we provide a network to connect people. And how that looks is it's a little different depending on the community and the person. But it all comes down to relationships and people. For example, in 2015, shortly after we launched this, right around the same time as we were talking about earlier, that we launched this national mystery shopping effort. However, I was running this nonprofit as a side hustle at the time, which now I'm full-time doing this. But what we did at that time was we partnered with DC government. We partnered with the mayor's office, and they started leveraging our network to send out real-time hypothermia alerts to people experiencing homelessness in the city. And what that looked like was a text message. When it got really cold out, a text message would go out to our network, saying, "Hey, call this number. Someone will pick you up and they'll take you to shelter." That's been going on for several years. And then, before I go into the goals and the next steps, I'll just say one other thing about that is, we started this network in 2015, and around 2017, 18, we started to see a lot more needs just beyond vulnerable people. We saw that the majority of organizations that serve them, so nonprofits, soup kitchens, shelters, housing providers, just all of them in general often have some of the same challenges. We said, okay, how can we overcome those challenges? And by serving them, we can better serve vulnerable people. And that's what we did. So we started allowing them to use our network, which is often tech-driven, to send two-way text messages to check on people's experience. We also launched kiosks, which are currently in many organizations. We're now also in we're throughout the Mid-Atlantic Southeastern region. So we're in several states now. We're not just in Washington, D.C. But overall, just to bring it back, what we do is we're connecting vulnerable people to services. I'll say, this last point, and this goes into the other question you mentioned of our goals, but is related to how we do this. Like, how do we have a network, right? How do we make that happen? So we're often reaching out to organizations. We effectively have a call center. We're making hundreds and thousands of calls a day and week, and that's where we're verifying people. We're verifying services. So with that, I can go into the goals. Our goals, we want to continue to scale. Right now, we're in 5 communities, and we're trying to scale to 25 communities. In fact, we'll be going down to the Southeast, some of our team next week, to launch in a new community. But really what we want to do is we want to help people, no matter what their challenge is, connect to a network. And we realize, and I would say this is probably so important, what I'm about to say, because I think it's where people often don't see the need for us unless they understand this single point I'm about to mention. But that is, unless you've ever experienced a vulnerability, unless you've ever slept on the street, unless you've ever been kicked out of a war-torn country because you were a refugee, it's easy to assume that one would just Google services, or it's also easy to assume that someone would be able to refer you, some official, some representative that you encounter. And the fact of the matter is that is not correct. Services change frequently. There's eligibility requirements. There's a limit. So there's only a certain amount of meals, shelters that can be provided, beds that can be provided. So that is, really why we're here. So we really want to make this global eventually, but right now we're growing to 25 communities, which we plan to be by next year. But that's our goals. And then, just the next steps, I'll say, we often, because we have hundreds of volunteers, we're asked how, if people want to get involved. And I'm happy to share that as well. But that's a little bit about what we do, Jake, as well as our goals.
How can someone, if they're really passionate and really they have a really good cause, and they really want to start a nonprofit, what are some of the first steps, if you don't mind sharing, that they can do to start?
Sure. Well, I would say first, see what's out there. Really try to better understand what's out there. I think oftentimes it's easy to assume that the need is not being met, or there's not another organization already doing it. So I would say, really try to start networking and meeting folks and see if what you want to do is out there. And if there is, see if you can partner with them, and you can work together. And, oftentimes you can implement your ideas in another organization, but there's just a lot of great things going on. So that would be number one. But number two is if you really, you survey the land, so to speak, and you identify that it really is an unmet need and what you do is very unique. I would suggest surround yourself by smart people. And that's what I've done. We have a great advisory board of directors, and they really keep me in check. They come from backgrounds with, I would say collectively over a century of experience. Mm-hmm. So just, really surround yourself with people who can guide you and, direct your vision. And then third and lastly, I would just say be persistent. Our nonprofit was denied when we first launched this. Wow. We had to appeal this with the IRS. It took 3 years to get our nonprofit approved.
Wow.
So it very much took resilience, to say the least.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was lead me to one of the next questions was, what have been your biggest challenges? Running the nonprofit, and you just pretty much answered it with the IRS, right? Anything else? And I mean, obviously, staying afloat, and then like you and I spoke offline a little bit about how you can't do this if you're trying to make money. That's, I think, the most important thing. It's the number one thing people need to understand in a nonprofit, right?
I would say absolutely. If you want to start a nonprofit, profit shouldn't be the motive. It
Right.
should be mission.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so outside of the IRS, any other challenges you met along the way with over the past few years? I mean, don't get into all of them, but I know there's probably a lot. But I mean, just to give the audience a little context,
Yeah.
because I know when we spoke, you're like, you're probably ready to take a nap. You're so busy, I get it.
No, and you are as well. No, I would just say that, yeah, many challenges that I face, we face. But really, I think that's the journey. The experience is the fun part. It's, rolling up your sleeves and overcoming those challenges. And, for me, I've embraced and enjoyed the experience, the journey. It's not the destination, although we know the destination, but the road to get there is not defined. We're flexible. And yeah, we've learned along the way that we've had to pivot. We've learned along the way that we've needed to change. Yeah, that has really been a humbling experience to some degree. But yeah, no, we're very mission focused, to say the least here.
That's right. No, that's awesome. And also really quickly, looking on your website, your team. I mean, it's pretty awesome. These people that are volunteering their time, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We have dozens of meetings a week, and these are folks that are working full-time jobs, sometimes multiple, and they're given of their time and talent and resources. You bet.
Yeah, and it's really cool too. One of the last things I just want to touch on before we close it out here shortly, but you do a lot of traveling. If you don't mind, you don't mind sharing just a little bit about that? What you're doing when you're traveling?
Yeah, absolutely. So our organization at this point is really focused on serving the most vulnerable, and the most vulnerable are always not in the United States. So for about the past 7-8 years, we have had a project in Honduras, which has been providing underprivileged, vulnerable youth with leadership training. And what we have been doing is coordinating the logistics and getting them the support, whatever they need, so that they can get access to scouts as well as English training. So that was a little bit while I was there. Actually, when you and I had first met, I was just traveling. We were standing up a mini computer lab. So we took down several computers, and we were standing up some curriculum on those computers for these youth to learn English. And the hope is that English will result in, especially with the leadership training, good paying jobs, and help them be leaders in their communities and country.
That's awesome. That's awesome because, a lot of people, they always want to know, what they can do in America to reach out. And definitely we'll wrap it up here. Any resources people could look into, like I said, they want to look into the process of starting a nonprofit, things like that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't. I can just tell you what not to do from my experience, but I can't recommend a site or a single source. Unfortunately, I just know it takes persistence.
Right.
And, you're dealing with a bureaucracy, IRS, and there is reporting and all kinds of elements to it. So don't expect it to be easy.
Right. I appreciate it. And then if people want to, want to volunteer for you, they can just go on the website, correct?
Correct. Yep. You got it. Yeah. So anyone that wants to volunteer with us can go to Get Involved. It's the big red button. And you'll see 3 ways to get involved. One is outreach, which is our major one, and it's what makes our nonprofit network possible. And the outreach is making calls, so you can do it on the couch in the comfort of your air-conditioned, heated apartment at home. And the other is actually street outreach, where we train you and you get the opportunity to engage in vulnerable people on the street, in the shelter, underneath the bridge.
Wow.
That's one. And then the second, we have technologists. So if technology is your passion, we have meetups for that. And then third and lastly, we have translation, because we're now increasingly working with folks who speak languages from Afghanistan, from Ukraine, just other languages beyond English. and if you speak another language, we could absolutely benefit.
That's awesome. Yeah. So last closing thing, Tim, do you want to just speak on that I didn't touch on? Do you like to speak about?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, having the opportunity to meet you in the sauna,
cool. Yes,
at the base gym, I got to learn that you have a great heart.
Appreciate that.
And I think what you're doing is incredible. And when I was prepping for this, I was thinking, okay, demographic veteran,
right?
So what would I say? And yeah, my only 2 cents is don't give up. There's a lot of people who care about you and that want you around, and you will no doubt continue to succeed. And if we can help with Hopeonesource, please reach out. You can just go to hopeonesource.org. It's not just a volunteer if we can help out. Some of those services we're verifying are mental health or substance abuse or food or a place to sleep. So just let us know how we can help. Hopeonesource.org.
Again, Tim, thank you. It's been amazing. And we'll see you back here again soon from All Motion.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Tim, for taking the time to sit down with All in Motion and share your journey. Myself and All in Motion wish you and all of Hopeonesource much success. And thank you all for listening and tuning in. As we grow here at All in Motion, we would really appreciate your feedback. So please email us at allemotionpodcast@gmail.com. Please listen also on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and many more. I'm Jake from All in Motion. Take care and be safe.